everyone, welcome to another Clean Machine Live. My name is Jeff Palmer. I'm the CEO and founder of Clean Machine. Before we get started, let's get into the disclaimer. This video is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Okay, Parkinson's disease. So it's becoming more common, more prevalent in the United States. Parkinson is now the second most common neurodegenerative disease, right behind Alzheimer's disease. An estimated 1.5 million people in the United States are living with Parkinson's disease, with about 60,000 Americans diagnosed every year. Okay, so researchers have been studying Parkinson's disease to try to find not only the cause, but how to treat it. And we have some good news and some not so good news for those who are still consuming animal products. Okay, so this review just came out this month. The review hails the gut-brain axis as a new frontier in Parkinson's disease. The gut connected to Parkinson's disease in the brain? Okay, I'll explain. The study goes on to say one of the Parkinson's disease hallmark pathologies is the accumulation of alpha-synuclein. What is alpha-synuclein? That's a good question. Okay, so we're pretty clear now through the research. Many studies have identified this protein, alpha-synuclein, in its misfolded, aggregated state. Means the protein becomes damaged and tangled and then starts knotting with other proteins and forming these masses. These masses then can cause what we now believe causes Parkinson's disease. But what is alpha-synuclein? Where does it come from? And why is it causing this problem? Okay, so first let's figure out what alpha-synuclein is. Alpha-synuclein is a small protein found in the central nervous system that helps regulate neurotransmission. Okay, well, that doesn't sound like a bad thing because it's not. Alpha-synuclein is actually made by all vertebrate animals. That's all mammals or animals that have a spinal cord. And this actual protein helps with the transmissions of communications of our nerve cells in the spine, in the brain, and throughout our body. So alpha-synuclein is a really good thing. It's a really important thing. As long as our bodies, ours and other animals that have a vertebrate, make it for themselves. The problem becomes when we ingest this protein. Okay, so the research goes on to say abnormal accumulation contributes to neuronal death, nerve death, and the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. Okay, so our body, just like many other, actually all other vertebrate animals like chickens, pigs, cows, sheep, fish, all of the food animals that we eat have a vertebrate. So all of these animals produce this particular protein, alpha-synuclein. Okay, so let's move on. Previous Parkinson's disease studies tended to focus on the brain, trying to figure out what's happening in the brain. But now the gastro and intestinal tract is recognized as pivotal in Parkinson's pathogenesis. Okay, why the digestive tract? By modulating gut microbial community, dietary polyphenols actually reduce intestinal inflammation, enhance the gut barrier, and produce metabolites that could inhibit the aggregation of alpha-synuclein, this protein that is clumping up Now, how does this protein get into our system? So let's actually take a picture, or let's take a look at the images of how this is happening. Okay, let me actually take down hide this. Okay, so we start out here, down here at the bottom. This is the digestive tract's lining. And alpha-synuclein, if we eat animal products, that's fish, eggs, dairy. Yes, eggs and dairy have alpha-synuclein in it too, because what is dairy? Dairy helps a cow grow, right? And that cow needs this protein to help it develop its nervous system. What is an egg? An egg is a baby chicken. It's going to grow up to a vertebrate animal. So it also needs this protein to help it develop its nervous system. This is why we should not be eating this, because when we do eat it, it damages our gut lining and creates gaps. These gaps are caused from our mucosa cell damage and our gut lumen, the lining of our gut being damaged and creating gaps, or what we call leaky gut syndrome. Once we have these gaps, these tangled masses of knots of alpha-synuclein can get into the bloodstream. Now, alpha-synuclein is designed, its function as a protein is to attach to nerve cells and assist the nerve cells. So it has an affinity to bind to nerve cells. Well, the vagus nerve is connected from our gut directly to our brain. So this protein is thought to actually hitch a ride on the vagus nerve and ride it all the way directly to the brain, where it accumulates and aggregates in the brain, causing nerve damage. Remember, the function of this protein is to attach to nerves to help the nerve function better. But when we eat this protein, it becomes damaged, partially broken down in our guts, and then causes toxicity, which allows it to leak into the gut and rebind to the nerves in its detrimental state. So this allows that hitching of a ride to the vagus nerve and to get into our brains. Now, the good news is that, let me take down this image. The good news is that polyphenols in plants actually inhibit alpha-synuclein from doing this. Now, they do this in multiple ways. Let's go ahead and put this image up. Let me first remove the caption. And let's take a look at the image. All right, so we got polyphenols up here up on the top, and you can see it directly inhibits alpha-synuclein fibrillation. Fibrillation is the forming of these tangled masses. Then it helps increase autophagic degradation. Autophagy is the breaking down of proteins to eliminate them so they don't become dangerous. So it inhibits their formation, it breaks them down if they do form, and then it also helps reduce the toxicity of those so they don't damage other cells. So you see that polyphenols also reduce neuroinflammation. They also reduce, over here, oxidative stress. All three of these pathways are beneficial to preventing the neurodegeneration process of alpha-synuclein in our diets. Now, how does alpha-synuclein get into our gut to begin with? All right, so let's dive into that. So this study shows us that vertebrate food products, that's all animals that have a vertebra, chickens, pigs, sheep, fish, all of them have a vertebra. So vertebrate food products as the source of prion-like alpha-synuclein. Okay. This study goes on to say, we then discuss meat as a ready exogenous, that's external, outside of our body. Because remember, our body produces its own alpha-synuclein for a good purpose, to help our nerve cells. It's when we get alpha-synuclein through our diet by eating animal products that we have an exogenous source entering into our gut. and forming alpha-synuclein. So you can see alpha-synuclein as risk factors, including causing inflammation, which damages the cell and allows this tangled mass of alpha-synuclein to get into the bloodstream and pass from the gut lumen into the host to induce pathology or the disease state of Parkinson's disease. Again, the good news, plant extracts and phytochemicals, specifically polyphenols, have been indicated to protect against this. So the link between alpha-synuclein and its pathogenesis, the creation of the disease state and progression, the promotion of Parkinson's disease, are well established in the literature. So we know pretty much that there is a strong correlation between alpha-synuclein actually attaching to the nerve cells, causing nerve death, causing the dysfunction that results in the symptoms that we see as Parkinson's disease. The same study says that plant extracts and phytochemicals, specifically polyphenols, were found to inhibit the aggregation of these fibrils, this tangled mass of alpha-synuclein that forms in our gut when we eat and consume animal proteins, fish, eggs, dairy, meat from all sources. That's chicken, meat, lamb, any vertebrate animal. All vertebrate animals produce alpha-synuclein, so when we eat them or their byproducts like eggs or dairy, we are consuming this alpha-synuclein. It gets damaged in our digestive tract. That damaged protein then becomes toxic. This alpha-synuclein damages our gut lining, allows for gaps to happen. Then it passes through into our bloodstream, attaches to the vagus nerve, and takes a ride from our gut to our brain, where it then has an affinity for binding to nerve cells and neurons and causes them to dysfunction and then die. So we know the whole pathway here, and we know what helps inhibit it. This is another one, 2021 review, potential therapeutic effects of polyphenols in Parkinson's disease. It's noteworthy that polyphenols, PPH, also reduce the toxicity induced by alpha-synuclein. So it prevents that damage to our gut lining so that the alpha-synuclein knots, these masses, don't get to pass into our bloodstream where they can then cause problems. But they prevent the misfolded aggregates of amyloid-β proteins too as well. So we're seeing similar pathways here with multiple sclerosis, with Alzheimer's disease, these amyloid-β and tau tangled proteins that forming in our gut, damaging our gut and entering it. And that's the same pathology pathway that we're seeing with Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is the #1 neurological disease. Then we have the #2 as Parkinson's disease. And we see this is coming from damaged proteins that are found only in animal products, only in vertebrate animals, chickens, pigs, fish, sheep, cows. Obviously, cow's red meat is one of the biggest sources of alpha-synuclein in our diet. So we know alpha-synuclein, we know the pathway, we know actually what inhibits it. So animal products are the only source of alpha-synuclein that cause Parkinson's disease. And here it is again. Alpha-synuclein causes Parkinson's disease. Alpha-synuclein is only found in animal foods. Plants do not make this protein because they don't have a spinal cord. They don't have a vertebrate. Polyphenols, which are only produced by plants, prevent alpha-synuclein from causing Parkinson's disease by multiple pathways. They prevent the toxicity, they prevent the inflammation, they prevent the damage to the gut lining so it doesn't get into the system to begin with. Polyphenols are only made by plants. So the only place you can get alpha-synuclein is from animals and that cause Parkinson's disease. And the only place you can get polyphenols that actually help prevent Parkinson's disease is plants. All right. So we're seeing a real clear pathway here that plants don't make alpha-synuclein and they prevent it. Animal proteins cause it. All right. But there's a theme going on here. The theme is we make alpha-synuclein and it's good for us. But when we eat it from another animal, it's bad for us and can lead to Parkinson's disease. We make heme iron. Animals also make heme iron, just like they make alpha-synuclein for their own health. But when we eat the animal and we get the heme iron, it can lead to colon cancer. So you see this path here happening when we make arachidonic acid and cholesterol. But when we get dietary, that means from the food we're eating, dietary oxidized cholesterol and a free arachidonic acid, we promote Alzheimer's disease. So plants don't make arachidonic acid. Plants don't make oxidized dietary cholesterol. Plants don't make heme iron. These are all things made only by animals. But when we eat these things that are made by the animals, they cause disease states in us over and over and over again. And when eating animals causes disease states and eating plants prevents disease, then it should be really obvious which food group our physiological system is designed for. Animals make these things: heme iron, cholesterol, arachidonic acid, and alpha-synuclein. They make that, including humans. We all make this. All the animals, including humans, make these. But when we put them into the human digestive tract, colon cancer, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, we're seeing dietary intakes that come from the animals that are just like us, producing these different forms of compounds, causing disease states in us. Okay, let's just take a look at heme iron. Here's a study, heme iron and the risk for colon cancer. This is a meta-analysis, so it's looking at a broad range of studies that are looking at it. And we know now heme iron has a direct effect, a catalytic effect on endogenous formation of carcinogenic, cancer-causing N-nitroso compounds, and the formation of cytotoxic, that's damaging to cells, and genotoxic, that is damage to your DNA, which is what causes cancer, right? When you damage the DNA of a cell, it makes bad copies. Bad copies are the definition of cancer. So we even know the pathways that are involved in heme iron toxicity, how it actually causes colon cancer. And heme iron is not found in plants. And it's not just one study. Even though that was a meta-analysis, there's tons of studies out there showing that the heme iron found in all animal flesh, fish, meat, chicken, does not matter. It's in all animal flesh. Again, another study. It's a multifaceted role of heme iron in producing cancer. It produces it through ROS. Let's just take a look at how many different pathways that heme iron can cause it. So you consume the red processed meat, it causes gut dysbiosis, which damages the gut, which allows cytotoxic or cellular damage. It damages our mucus layer and allows leaky gut. So all kinds of toxins can permeate our system. It causes N-nitrosamines, actual, real carcinogenic, cancer-causing. It damages the DNA through ROS. It increases lipid peroxidation, which in itself is damaging to the cells. Look at all the different cellular pathways in this one diagram from that heme iron that only comes from eating animal flesh. We are causing the disease states that are prevalent in our society by consuming the animals. And we know this. We know the pathways. We know exactly what's going on in the cells when we consume them. Why is this not being taught to people? Why are the doctors not talking about the cause of these disease states? It's all animal products. It's all proteins or compounds found in animals that are directly having negative effects on our cells. And we can even see that cholesterol. Now, there's a multitude of pathways of Alzheimer's. This on top here is clear arteries, cross sections of arteries of cadavers of brains. These are the arteries in your brains of cadavers of people who did not have Alzheimer's disease. This is the cross section of people's brains' arteries that died from Alzheimer's disease or died with Alzheimer's disease. You can see a very clear difference between a healthy brain's arteries and those of the brains of Alzheimer's patients. Now, that is saturated fat and cholesterol, oxidized cholesterol specifically, but let's take a look at the research. Okay. Here we go. Study number 1. The metabolism and effect. Now, look at the study title. It's very clearly pointing out what the cause is specifically. Metabolism and the effect of animal-derived oxysterols. Oxysterols is a name for oxidized cholesterol. Okay, oxysterols in the diet. So this is animal-derived, oxidized, heated cholesterol. Right? That's what causes it to oxidize when we cook the animal proteins in the diet on the development of Alzheimer's disease. There's a link between a diet high in cholesterol in its oxidized forms. That's when you cook cholesterol. Now, the oxidation actually happens about 3 minutes after the animal is killed. The average beef is what they call dry hung. They hang the cow for about 2 weeks to allow the microbes to start actually breaking down the meat. This makes it more tender and people find it more juicy and tasteful. But what you're talking about is the rotting of flesh. That's right. The animal carcass, the meat, the hanging beef, is hung there and allowed to rot for 2 weeks before it's even produced in the supermarket. This allows oxidation of the cholesterol that is in the animal products. But it's not just the cholesterol there. It's a compounding effect. This one, dietary arachidonic acid. Now, it's really important because this says dietary arachidonic acid is a Janus factor, meaning a potential causation of Alzheimer's disease in the brain. Why dietary arachidonic acid? Our body produces its own arachidonic acid from omega-6, LA and GLA, which is found in plants. Now, both LA and GLA are anti-inflammatory. Our body only converts LA and GLA in plants and plant oils and seeds only if our body needs arachidonic acid for healing. Like when I work out, right? I squeeze the muscle so hard, there's a little bit of damage going on there. So my body actually sends some arachidonic acid over to my muscle to help it heal and repair, cause a little bit of inflammation to speed the healing process. That's a good thing. That's when our body converts that LA omega-6 or GLA omega-6 to arachidonic acid. Our body, you can take the body, they've done studies that they put 6 times as much as normal intakes of omega-6 from plants and found no increase in arachidonic acid. So they said, well, what if we cut out? So they reduced intake of omega-6 from plants, right? These plant oils like soybean oil and corn oil and all this stuff, high in omega-6, LA and GLA, the anti-inflammatory ones. So they removed it, 90% of it from the diet, and there was not a single difference change in the amount of arachidonic acid because our body regulates and modulates and only produces arachidonic acid when it needs it. So how does elevated arachidonic acid in the human bloodstream happen? The only way you can elevate free arachidonic acid, not produced by our own body, is to consume it through the diet. And plants do not and cannot make arachidonic acid. It's impossible. The only source of oxidized cholesterol, the only source of arachidonic acid is animal products. Okay, but there's plenty of studies out there. You can see this over and over again. Dietary arachidonic acid increases the deleterious effect of amyloid-β oligomers. These are more these tangled proteins. So it's not just that these tangled proteins are getting into the brain. That's bad enough. It's that the dietary arachidonic acid that's in those animal flesh, that's in that animal flesh, also makes it worse. It compounds the negative effects of these amyloid-βs, these alpha-synuclein. It exacerbates, it worsens the effects of these. So let's dig into that study and show what they're talking about. This is another one, sorry, arachidonic acid in Alzheimer's disease. Great study. This really explains how the direct and indirect effects worsen it. Now, remember, dietary arachidonic acid only comes from one place, animals. Plants don't make it, period. You cannot elevate arachidonic acid in the human body, no matter how much omega-6 you're consuming. It does not matter. It does not change the levels of arachidonic acid in the human system, period. That's known. That's a fact. That's not arguable. Okay, so let's look at what this study says. Arachidonic acid is provided by the diet directly from animal products. There it is in the study. You don't have to take my word for it. Free arachidonic acid from consuming animal proteins contributes to Alzheimer's disease progression through multiple mechanisms. It's not just, it could cause it through this pathway. Well, we know multiple ways that this free arachidonic acid, this stuff that's free coming into our digestive tract through what we eat by eating animal products and by only eating animal products, do we get this free arachidonic acid floating into our brain, contributing in multiple mechanisms to Alzheimer's disease? Okay, so we see a real clear path here. We see that animals produce arachidonic acid, plants do not. Animals produce cholesterol in its oxidated state, plants do not. Animals produce alpha-synuclein, the cause of Parkinson's disease, plants do not. So the only way all of these diseases, heme iron produced by animals only, and it's found in the flesh of animals. Plants do not and cannot make heme iron. So over and over again, we see that the cause of these disease states is things that are produced. We produce heme iron, we produce cholesterol, we produce arachidonic acid, just like the animals that we eat do. The problem comes is when you take those things from the animal and put it in our digestive tract where it doesn't belong. It creates all of these negative effects: colon cancer, atherosclerosis, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, diabetes. All of these disease states are caused by what we're putting in our mouths. Okay, so there's some good news. This 2022 study looked at the effect of physical activity and fruit and vegetable intake on decreasing cognitive decline. This was talking about dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and of course, Parkinson's disease. Okay, so they looked at a high fruit and vegetable intake was associated with a decrease in cognitive decline by 40%. 40%. And that's just by a high intake of that. Imagine if you remove the cause, these animal products, and only ate plants, how much that would be affected. 40% is good enough for me, but my God, good, better, best. It gets better. The risk of cognitive decline was decreased by 63% when you added high amounts of physical activity. Well, that's what Clean Machine is all about. I'm trying to encourage you to increase your physical activity and eat more plants. Cognitive decline decreasing 63%. The more you exercise, high physical activity, and a high fruit and vegetable intake combined. 63%. I mean, if you were forced to play Russian roulette, how many bullets do you want in that gun? Don't you want to play the odds? Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, senile dementia. These are brutal diseases, not only for the person experiencing the diseases. The loss of our mind is one of the most frightening things we can experience. But it's brutal on those who love us, who have to experience and watch us go through this suffering, losing our jobs, losing our faculties, losing our ability to communicate, to think properly, to function. I don't wish that on anybody. And we know the pathologies. We know how these things form. We know it's our diet contributing to these in a big way. That's why I formed Clean Machine, to try to help encourage and incentivize and keep people motivated to eating more plants and exercising. These two things alone can improve your lifestyle. Look, I'm 61 years of age. I don't take any medications. I don't have any disease states. And I'm in the best shape of my life at 61. That's what I want for you. A clear mind, a healthy body, functioning way into those ages. You work all your life. You work hard all your life to try to get to a place where you can retire and enjoy life. Don't spend your retirement with Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or multiple sclerosis. My mother died from multiple sclerosis. We now know that what's in our diet is having an impact on these diseases. We know the pathology, we know the pathways, we know the molecular actions that are going on. We need to tell more people that they have the power to change this. Don't wait till it's a full-blown disease to try to treat it with drugs. There's a place for drugs. Yes, drugs should be, well, I shouldn't say should. I would take drugs if it saved my life. I'm happy not to have these disease states because I have lived for 40 years as a vegan. I have lived for 40 years putting plants and exercising on a daily basis. These things are helping me enjoy the life and the fruits of my labor to this point. That's what I want for you. That's why I do this. That's why I do these podcasts. It's why I share this information. It's why I created my company. I want to give back. I feel like somebody gave me a new lease on life. And that's what I want to pay forward. I want to help people, to see people. That would be the most rewarding thing for me, is testimonies of people saying, hey, if we could say this, if we had a crystal ball, I didn't develop this disease because I changed my diet. I started exercising. I started putting essential nutrients that my body requires to function properly into my body. That's what I want. That's what I hope to do, and so what I'll keep doing every Thursday right here at 4 p.m. is looking at the research, sharing the research with you so you can make an empowered decision. I'm not telling you what to eat. I'm not telling you what to do. And I'm not telling you that this science is 100% accurate. Science over and over gets proven wrong and replaced with better new research. But I want to share this research with you so that you can make the most empowered decisions, the most informed decisions that are right for you. You may not care. You may say, I don't enjoy this life very much. I don't care if I die. I don't care if I get disease. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just going to have fun anyway, regardless. I'm going to eat the crap food. Doesn't matter. Okay, that's your prerogative. That's what you're going to choose for your life. But for those out there who sincerely want to live their most optimal health, want to not suffer, want to not, put themselves in a place where their loved ones, their family members, their spouse, their children don't have to watch, don't have to suffer through a parent, a friend, a family member, suffering through Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease. If there is a chance that changing the diet and exercise could lead you out of that pathway, why would you not want to do that? I'll be back again next week with some more great information on the science. It's frustrating to me to see all this science, to see clearly that we've known this. Some of these studies, 2009, almost 20 years, 15 to 20 years old, we've known about these causes that are found only in animal foods that we're consuming. Why is this not being taught to people? Why is this not being shared? Why are we not telling people how to properly use this human body so that they don't cause as much disease states? I leave that up to you. That's a question we all must answer on our own. I want to help empower you to make the best decisions, and I want you to live the best life possible. That's why I provide this information, and that's why I'll keep doing what I'm doing. Thanks for watching me. If you know someone with Parkinson's disease, or that may be concerned about it, or that's elderly and may be developing senile dementia or other challenges of the brain, please share this information with them. If it can be any help at all, that would make me so happy. And I'm sure it would make them happy too as well, and their families. Thanks for watching. Give us a comment if you have more questions. I'll do my best to answer them. Again, this is the research. There's more research to come, and there's more research out there. I encourage you to comb through the research yourself. Don't take my word for it. Read the studies. They make it very clear that these disease states, to me, very clear to me, you may come to a different conclusion. That's your prerogative. But read this research and allow it to help guide you to lowering your risks for awful, awful disease states of the mind, of the brain.